Housing prices are once again set to soar this year. By some accounts, the cost of a single-family home in Toronto could rise by a staggering 16% in 2017. Many homeowners cheer that news with visions of fat profit and lush retirement. Many first-time homebuyers worry that means they'll never be able to afford anything. Well, economists say it's now time for policymakers to step in and try to cool down this market. Jean-Francois Perrault says it's time to hike taxes on speculators. He's the chief economist at Scotiabank. Everybody seems to have a different answer to this. Why speculators in your case?
Well, I think what we're seeing in the Toronto housing market is clearly an excessively rapid pace of price increases. And that to us is indicative of speculative activity, one that I think is beyond what would expect if simply the impact of foreign buyers or other such measures.
Right. So. I mean, is Toronto dealing with speculators in the way that we think Vancouver is dealing with foreign buyers?
Well, it's a tough question to answer because we don't have enough data.
Right.
What we do know on foreign buyers is they were, 10 to 15% of the market in Vancouver prior to them doing the foreign buyers tax. In Toronto, the best evidence is 4 to 5%, but it's entirely anecdotal, and we just don't have enough to know if that's actually the right basis for comparison.
And it's hard enough to figure out in Vancouver what the foreign buyers is, and they don't have to fill out a form to say what their country primary residence is. Is there a way to properly track what a speculator is versus just somebody who, you know what I mean? Can we get that data more easily?
Well, yes, in some ways. When you purchase a place and you sell it, your deed changes.
Right, that flip would...
So you can track how long somebody's had a house. If you were inclined to do so, and in fact, that's how Terranet calculates its house price index. So you look at the same house being sold over a number of times, and so you can do that, and you can track it.
Okay, so let's say we went ahead with a tax like this. How do you see it playing out, and what would it do to really cool the market? Do you think, or would it even? Would it just sort of slow growth?
It would slow growth. I mean, at this point in time, to cool a market as rapid as this one, I think you're looking at either a very, very forceful policy intervention or some kind of economic shock, like an economic slowdown. And the reality is, in Toronto, things are going very, very well. So it's unlikely that we're going to see a very significant cooling of the housing market in and of itself. It's unlikely that a measure that you put in place to kind of smooth the market, cool the market down, would have a very negative effect on the market as well. You might slow it a little bit, which is what you want. Yeah. But that's about it.
Where's it good? Is this something that a municipality could do? That a province? Where does a tax like this find its most effective? Placement?
Well, in the case, say you wanted to use the land transfer tax system.
Right.
That opens
That's
up.
That's a city program.
Well, it's a city and it's a provincial thing. So the province can do it, or a municipality can do it, which is of particular advantage, given the fact that we have in Ontario a few markets that are doing much better than others. Right. So implementing a speculative measure that affects markets, say Northern Ontario, which aren't growing at 25% a year is you'd have to think about that.
We just did a whole show out of Vancouver last Thursday talking about the housing market in general, but specifically in Vancouver. And one of the things that sort of came up time and again was the risk of policy interventions like this, that when you do begin to meddle in a market, it does come with risks. What are the risks of all of them, but this one in particular?
Well, I think one can look at speculation as being something that's bad and worthy of policy intervention. That's not our view. Our view is speculation actually serves an important market function. What you want to do is perhaps make speculation a little bit more expensive. So you kind of take the edge away from speculation, so that you incent people to take action based on fundamentals a little bit more than on anticipations of future price increases. Right. So I think that's the intent of a proposal like that. The danger is you don't know if you're in a housing bubble, not that we necessarily are, but if you're in a market where prices are rising as fast as they are, people are sensitive to a significant cooling, a rapid cooling. So they will be looking to potentially an intervention as the trigger that says, okay, now I'm going to change my views on the Toronto housing market because I think this thing is going to make the difference.
But I mean, if we're meddling too much, then our ability to understand what the market itself, independent of all this meddling, is doing, gets yet further muddied with every sort of intervention we put in place, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, we come back to that first question, but do we have the right data to tell us what's going on? This is a drum I've been beating on the show for a while, that we don't have the right data, whether it's on foreign buyers or in this case, speculator tax. Who needs to take responsibility for that and make sure that we're getting the right data and that those data are informing our policy decisions?
I think it's an issue that affects a range of levels of governments. On a speculative tax, I think it's reasonably easy to do because, as I said, you've got land registries, you can track home sales relatively easily. The foreign buyer dimension is a little bit more difficult because people come in with pay cash for place and the deed will be transferred, but you don't register your nationality. That's, I think, reasonably easy to do, but again, it's a federal thing, it could be a provincial thing, it could be a municipal thing. It just depends on the exact nature of the intervention. It's certainly an area that needs work, though. There's no question.
It's certainly, and I mean, whether like the CMHC could take it on, but somebody has to fill in that void. And the conversations I have with people are almost always rooted in an uncertainty and questions around where are we in this market. And then you hear, well, wait a second, the chief economist at a bank came out and said we need to have policy intervention. What message does this sort of suggestion about where we are and what kind of a tax could be put in place to try to help sort of slow growth down? What message should this send to the average homeowner?
Well, I think, unfortunately, I think we're in a world, it depends on your perspective.
Right.
Fortunately, unfortunately, we're in a world where we're looking at Toronto house prices rising for a significant period of time. The demand is just too strong.
Right.
The economy is doing well. So from the average homeowner's perspective, I think measures that could put in place, such as this one, or other measures to raise supply, aren't likely to have a dramatic impact on prices in the very near term. So to them, the message is, things might be a little bit difficult for a while if you're trying to get into the market, because it's difficult to see prices slowing very dramatically on account of most outcomes that you think about.
And if I got it right, you say that whatever tax, but this one in particular, could be done as a neutral.
I think the opportunity afforded by whatever tax, a speculative tax in particular perhaps, is that if you design it in a revenue neutral way, it allows you, say, to tax the speculative activity, use those proceeds to maybe provide tax credits to first-time home buyers, perhaps reinvest that in affordable housing.
Get rid of another tax maybe, but that's not going to happen. Listen, it's a fascinating proposal, and it's a really interesting time in this. We really appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
All right, Jean-Francois Perrault, Chief Economist at Scotiabank.